today we're talking about homology. Basically, that is the similarity that exists in species because they inherited the trait from a common ancestor. The first picture we're going to see, you see lizard, tortoise, pig, and human. Similarities from the top to bottom. You see things such as a tail and gill pouches, but they're all kind of curled up and they look similar to each other. But you see at the end they're very different species, right? But we see how very similar they are as an embryo, and it goes away as they grow. But because we do see that, we know that there's that common ancestry. The next few pictures we're going to see are a horse's hoof, a human arm, a whale fin, and a bat's wing. Again, they don't look like they have a whole lot in common, but if you look at the last picture, it shows all of them together, or I think it's the cat paw instead of the horse's hoof. But either way, you see the same thing. The bones are all the same. They may have a different shape, but they're all the same bones. And we also see that as coming from a common ancestor, but changing enough for the purpose of that animal. This is called a structural homology. So limbs with different functions, but have the same underlying structure. And you can see it in many other different animals, such as turtles. Going to tell the gene where the eye goes, and then it's going to have the eye with a single lens. So that is how genetic homology works. Okay, so the three levels of homology can interact, right? So genetic homologies, the DNA, then cause the developmental homologies, right? And we see how things develop. And then that leads to the structural homologies, how things end up being developed. And then coming straight out of the biology book, things can be tested experimentally about homology. So researchers then isolate genes from, say, the mice or squid that were thought to be homologous to the fruit fly eyeless gene. They insert the mouse or squid gene into a fruit fly embryo, and then they stimulated the expression of the foreign gene in locations that normally give rise to appendages. So imagine fly leg that grows a fly eye. So interesting that they can do that, right? Think about ears that grow on mice, things like this. So homology being one of the concepts of biology, we can see things. So chemicals that are cancer-causing in humans can be identified by testing their effects on mutation rates in bacteria, because the molecular machinery responsible for copying and repairing DNA is homologous in all organisms. Remember, DNA works the same in all organisms. Drugs intended for human use can be tested on mice or rabbits if the molecules targeted by the drugs are homologous. So that's why we see testing sometimes in these smaller animals and rodents, because it is a homologous system. Unknown sequences in the human, in rice, or other genomes can be identified if they are homologous to known sequences in yeast, fruit flies, or other model organisms. So we have to keep that in mind on why we do some things in biology that don't always seem fair or ethical. And that's a whole nother chapter all into itself. The theory of evolution by natural selection predicts that homologies will occur. And we see it, right? If species were created independently of one another, as the theory of creation claims, these types of similarities would not occur. But we do see homologies, so we know that there is common ancestry, and we do see evolution at work. Okay, we're going to do a phylogeny walkthrough. So your assignment after this will be to create your own phylogeny. A phylogeny is basically kind of like a family tree. So looking at this phylogeny here, we are just kind of going through order, family, genus, species of Carnivora. And you see it just breaks down from Carnivora into a couple of branches, from order, Carnivora, into family. And the two branches initially are Felidae and Canidae. So that's basically breaking that up into the wolf family or dog family and a cat family. And then in the middle, it breaks off from the Canidae. So there's a common ancestor directly between Canidae and Mustelidae, and that includes the skunk and the otter. So there's a more common ancestor between the skunk and the otter and the dogs than there is between them and the cats, if you can see that in there. So the cats are kind of going off on their own, so they go Felidae, and then in this case, Panthera, and then Panthera pardus, which is the leopard. Going off on the other side, which branches between the Canidae and Mustelidae, Canis, or we go into the genus side, and the Canidae goes into Canis, and then it branches off again. So there is a common ancestor between the domestic dog and the wolf. And then breaking off towards that, the skunk and otter, you have family Mustelidae, and then there's this common ancestor where it branches off and goes into the genus Nephitis and Lutra. So there's a common ancestor between the skunk and the otter. So that's basically what you're doing. You're trying to find where the branching is and where the branching is best displayed between one order, one family, one genus, one species. And that is where you'll see the phylogeny comes in handy.